Hey there, welcome to MagnetiK Mumma, the podcast where we parent with nervous system wisdom, soul-led grit, and zero shame. I'm Steph, a holistic nurse, writer, and a mum who is keeping it real in the chaos. I'm giving you permission to raise resilient kids without losing yourself, because when you thrive, your kids can too. So let's get into the messy middle and find our magic. Hey there, and welcome back to MagnetiK Mumma. Yes, it's been a hot minute, but I'm back for this week anyway. It's term 1, March. Life's been busy, life's all happening. And this week, I wanted to share with you something that happened that triggered this whole can of worms that I want to talk about and share with you. And it's one of those things that doesn't really seem like a big deal, but it just kept expanding. So my girls had cross country this week and they ran, but not like ran, like the run. It was more like a gentle jog, a bit of chatting. We're here, we're participating, and that's enough kind of energy. And no sprint finish, no real urgency to push, not chasing the top 10. And I found myself watching with this really not so subtle internal reaction. Like maybe they should want more. Maybe they should be more determined to win. Maybe there should be more hunger to beat the other kids. Because on one hand, I deeply value participation, enjoyment, connection. But on the other, I also know that life requires grit and resilience and the ability to push through that discomfort. If anyone was like me and loved cross-country running or running in general, it is the one thing that can teach you to push through mentally. It's a mental game. Running is a mental game. And if you can push through that discomfort without any severe injuries, obviously, but it's uncomfortable to run for a long time. And these kids are running 3Ks and they're only little. And some of the kids are smashing it because they park run, they train, they do all the things. And then you got my little old kids who were dancers and told not to run because it tightens their hamstrings and all sorts. So my kids had never been runners. They were dancers. And therefore their running skills are pretty limited. But back in my day, I loved running, and running was a skill that I'd taught myself and practiced because I used to get up with my mum at 5:30 and she would run 10Ks and I would run 5 because I was, I don't know, not as fit as she was. And I had a young mum, so she was pretty smoking hot fit. And we all played netball and mum and I played centre court. So to be in the centre court, you've got to be fit, and running was a way that I did it. So I loved running, and I understand that running has this incredible potential to teach you a life skill that is resilience, that is pushing through discomfort and that grit to want to finish. And to be fair, another parent noted to me that they wished their daughter pushed harder too. And so I was like, it's not just me, thank goodness. I'm not a tiger mum. I'm not trying to force stuff onto my kids that they're not ready for. But I did have this little tension of, I wish she would try harder, or I wish she wanted it more. And I think that's where a lot of parents sit, right? It's not just me thinking that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you about it, because it was brought to my attention. And it also then, and I've had this discussion quite a few times with my husband, what are we actually preparing our kids for? The world's changing. What are we preparing our children for? So as I mentioned, as a kid, when I was my kids' age, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, sport was my life. And I was competitive, and I was competitive in the way that I didn't have to win everything, but I definitely wanted to be up there with the winners, and I wanted to be in the A team in netball, and I wanted to be getting higher grades in class. I wasn't always there, but that was my drive. I wanted to be good at things. And that's what drove me. And I also enjoyed doing those things because it connected me with the other kids. It, impressed my teachers because I was a massive people pleaser, even though I'm working on it. Sometimes it even got me out of class when, like I didn't want to do Indonesian. So I'd rather go running, So for me, sport was a big part of my identity growing up. And particularly in a country town where there's not that much else to do if you don't play sport. And so I adapted to sport and it really helped me find my way through life. And I think there's a lot of skills in sports and running and netball and basketball and these team sports that create life skills that you can't teach by parenting and just saying what, you've got to go feel and experience what it's like. So I was a competitive kid and I think I was quite a good sport most of the time, not all the time. I used to give umpires dirty looks and get contact a lot and stand out of play, but I kept on keeping on. And I'm just kind of curious about how other people, if I have that, but it's not transferring over to my kids, how are other parents feeling about this? So, and maybe it's not even necessary for the future, but because I think a lot of what we expect from our kids is obviously shaped by what we experienced ourselves, I'm like, I don't understand. Why don't you want to win? Why don't you want to try your best? Why don't you want to be up there with the winning people? So then I found myself zooming out and thinking about how different cultures approach this. Now, mind you, I am in a multicultural marriage and lifestyle. So I have a Sri Lankan husband and we are connected with their Sri Lankan heritage as we live here in Australia, but the rest of my husband's family all live over in Sri Lanka. So I have this unique perspective of two cultures in one house, but I also feel like I've traveled around the world enough. I've lived in India, worked with parents and children in India, taught in Thailand schools and a long time ago, and then worked in schools in Australia with very multicultural communities up north. So I feel like I've done a fair bit of observation. And, you can just see it in the schools. Who are the kids who are doing really well and who aren't? And often they're from different cultural backgrounds other than the Aussies. So, but, new Aussies all embracing the system, but there's some cultures that can seem to be able to achieve these higher results. And that just made me think about it, and what is it that they're doing? And I think when you look at cultures like particularly the Sri Lankan culture, there is a very strong emphasis on discipline, effort, education, and achievement. And literally, effort isn't optional. It's just what you do. You just get on with it and you work hard and you do it. And I noticed myself wondering, how do some families create that level of drive? Because I'm yet to be able to achieve that. And I think in amongst different parenting styles, particularly around expectations, values, structure, homework, sport, performance, those types of things, having that incessant push on those values can also lead to a level of pressure, anxiety, and fear of failure. So, where is the balance and how do you get that intrinsic motivation happening where it's a natural flow? It's not this push, pull, force type of situation. So when you zoom out even further, arguably, this is definitely not just about parenting styles. It's about systems. And if you think in Australia, in particular, we've grown up in a world shaped by colonization, industrialization, and capitalism. And so that's a world that has quietly taught us more is better, faster is better, winning is better, and being ahead is better. Just look at the politics right now. And as Australians, that's, I guess, what we value. And, look at us in the Olympics and the Commonwealth. Like, we are a competitive nation for how small our population is against some of the other bigger, more populated countries. But little old Aussies, we get in there. We are competitive and give it a really, really good go. And obviously, as a nation, we've internalized that majority, and we don't even realize how naturally competitive we are, even though we know it, but we don't acknowledge it. So if I look at my journey of achievement, which is a mixed bag. Like, I am no high-flying academic or, Mongol of any sorts, right? But I definitely think in my little dreams that I had as a young girl in the country town who loved playing sport, I think my connection with achievement has been a mixed bag. Because whilst I feel like I have done a lot of things in my life and I've had some wonderful experiences, and I've been in netball grand finals, and they've been, I've been in basketball grand finals, I've been in swimming comps where I'm, at the top, not necessarily number one, but I'm in the relay team and we win. And I'm a part of our school had a bit of a winning culture. We used to compete in athletics against the other towns in our area, and we won every single year. Like, we were a part of this winning culture. So I really embodied that in my life. And I think it taught me how to be a good sport. I can lose. It's disappointing. It hurts. There were things that you can reflect upon that you could have done better. But I also think it is a part of life. It's a game of life. You win some, you lose, but I always want to win. So I'm always striving to win on some aspect. But that, I guess, as I get older, is now more on my terms versus what society says I should win at, and what my parents think I should win at, and what my family think I should win at. It's more now, I value this, and I would like to win towards these things. And a beautiful, now late granddad used to say, if you can't be good at it. So I embody that like a mantra, and my other grandfather said, it's quality, Steph, not quantity. So I kind of live on those two mantras in my life, and I'm trying to share that with my kids. But watching them in cross country this week, I was like, what is going on? And it wasn't just me who felt that. There were other parents who felt the same. So I am saying this because other people highlighted it, and I thought it was just me and it was a bad thing to think, but I really wanted to explore it and share this finding and pose the question to you guys, like, what do you think? Is winning the only thing that's important, or how do you instill the energy of intrinsically motivating your kids to want to win, or at least give it a good go? And I think, if I'm really honest, some of the voice that I heard when I was watching my girls actually wasn't about them. No, I don't even, you guys can hear that. It's not about them. It's about me. And I'm trying to hand over this intrinsic motivation that don't seem to have. And yeah, it's about me. But it does pose the question as a parent, how do we motivate our kids to have their own intrinsic motivation to win at what they want to win at? So what I've been taught success looks like is being better, being the best, having success. If you look at many ancient cultures, they are opposite. Success wasn't about being better than the person next to you. It was more about being in the right relationship, not with only the person next to you, but within yourself and within the community and with the environment and the land around you. And that is a very different success. And now we're raising kids in a world that's changing even faster than ever with AI. Machines can think faster, process more, produce quicker. So then the question becomes, if AI can outperform humans in so many ways, what will make our children valuable? And do they need to compete, or do they need to connect? So what can't AI do? AI can't feel deeply, hold emotional nuances, build genuine human connections, or sit with someone in pain. And if I think back to some of the most powerful nursing experiences that are etched in my brain, that even make me a bit teary when I think about it, is when, there's two situations that really trigger me. And that is one, when I was out in a remote community and an old lady of a First Nations Indigenous elder was passing away, and I just happened to be on that shift. There's like 6 nurses that worked at this hospital out in the bush, and this old lady was on her last legs, and I was a baby nurse, right? Like I was 23, and life experience was minimal, and something intuitively told me that this elderly woman was about to have her last breaths. And I had not yet encountered death, actually, as a nurse. Or maybe I had, but not by myself. And sent a message to the health worker to go get all her family, because I don't think she's going to be here much longer. And I sat with her until her family came. And I kid you not, as her family sat around her, within the 5 minutes of her family arriving, she took her last breath. And it was remarkable. It was beautiful. And whilst it was super sad and like an elder and her wisdom had moved on, I don't know that AI could capture that moment as a human experience could. So it's things like that can't be automated, that can't be done by AI. And I think that humanistic approach is something that is going to be needed in the future. And yet here in Australia right now, we are hearing that our kids are addicted to screens, they lack resilience, which they do, that we're babying them too much, we do everything for them. But at the same time, we expect them to succeed, perform, compete, and get ahead. So we're saying be soft, be tough, be supported, but be independent, be emotionally aware, but be high achieving. That is very confusing for me and as a parent, as a human, and to share with them. So I guess for me, maybe the question is, how do I make my child more competitive? Maybe it's more a reframe around what kind of human does the future actually need? And when I think about what I want for my girls and what matters the most to me is that they find their potential and they live to it. They find contentness and a sense of purpose and enjoyment in what they do. And by doing that, they are able to live a life where they have the freedom to do what they choose. And I think that's available if we provide the right environment and opportunities, because the real edge moving forward might not be winning like what it was for us in the 80s, but moving into the future, it might be more about adaptability and emotional intelligence, resilience, creativity, connection. And so do they need drive? Well, yeah, but not in the sense of, I must beat everyone, I must be the best. It's more like, I know how to meet myself when things get hard. I know how to do hard things, and I can still push through. So when I go back to that moment when I'm thinking about, why don't my girls want to run harder or be better, instead of thinking, why didn't they try harder? I'm going to start thinking about, do they feel safe in themselves? Do they know how to push when it matters? Do they trust themselves enough to stretch when they're ready? So instead of you should try harder, I'm thinking more to ask questions like, what did it feel like when it got hard? Where did you push a little more? I wonder what you're capable of if you didn't hold back. Because really, this isn't about cross country. No, it's about how our children meet life and challenges. How do they avoid? How do they collapse? How do they avoid? How do they push? How do they stay steady? Because maybe we're not here to raise kids who win the race. Maybe we're just here to raise humans who know when to run, when to rest, when to lead, and when to connect, and how to stay fully in themselves in a world that is changing faster than ever. So, what do you think? If this stirred something in you, come and join me over on Substack, because we're just not raising kids, we're raising the future. Like, our legacy is here. We're sharing what we're learning so that they can be the best versions of themselves while we be the best versions of ourselves as parents. So I'm Steph, MagnetiK Mumma. I hope there's something in there for you. Comment anywhere, connect with me on socials, and check out Substack for more. And I will see you next time. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to MagnetiK Mumma. Remember, your calm is contagious. Breathe deep, soften your shoulders, and keep loving through the messy middle. I'm Steph, your MagnetiK Mumma. See you next time.